Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most intense and satisfying showdowns in the entire story. So, why was the Winged Realm suddenly launching attacks on the Immortals? It was all part of Xuan Nu's desperate plan to kill a high-ranking Immortal. That night, Bai Qian found herself, lost in thought again, pacing in her room. Her mind was a tangled mess, trying to figure out how to help the young Yuan Zuan navigate his mortal tribulation. The task weighed heavily on her. Suddenly, a familiar figure materialized in the room, breaking her concentration. It was the Hua, a warm, knowing smile gracing his lips. "Qianqin," he said, his voice a low, comforting hum. "It's been days. I've missed you terribly. Did you miss me?" The unexpected, direct words of affection caught Bai Qian completely off guard.
A blush crept up her neck, and she felt a flutter in her chest.
Thankfully, the Hua, ever perceptive, noticed her shyness and didn't press the matter. Instead, he gracefully turned and sat on the edge of the bed, patting the space beside him. Bai Qian hesitated for just a moment, before cautiously sitting down next to him. The air between them was charged, but the Hua's expression turned serious.
He had come with crucial information.
"Qianqin," he began, "I came to tell you something important. Yuan, Zhen's father in this mortal life, is Dong Hua Dia." The revelation hit Bai Qian like a bolt of lightning. Dong Hua Dijan, the same ancient, revered Dijan that her own niece, Feng Jiu, was so hopelessly smitten with. She could hardly believe it. The Hua continued, his tone firm. "Dijan requested this tribulation himself. It is his trial to endure. Your duty is to help Yuan Zuan succeed, but you must not, under any circumstances, alter Dazun's fated path. Do you understand?" Hearing this, Bai Qian's heart sank. The task, already daunting, now seemed nearly impossible. The responsibility felt immense.
Could she really protect Yuan Zuhan without interfering with the destiny of a god as powerful as Dong Hua Desh?
Just then, a sudden, fierce gust of wind rattled the windows, shaking the panes in their frames. Bai Qian, startled, got up to secure the latch. When she turned back, her jaw practically hit the floor. The scene before her was unexpected. The Hua had already removed his outer robe and was calmly laying out the bedding. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with a soft, tender light. "Do you prefer to sleep on the inside or the outside?" he asked, his voice laced with gentle amusement. Bai Qian swallowed hard, her mind racing. Flustered, she pointed awkwardly at the floor. "I'll sleep on the floor," she stammered.
A slow, mischievous smile spread across the Hua's face.
"Tonight," he said, his voice dropping to a seductive murmur, "whether you're on the floor or in the bed, the outcome will be the same. Unless, of course, you're only half-heartedly agreeing to this engagement, Qian." His implication hung in the air, potent and clear. Panicked at the thought of him misunderstanding, Bai Qian quickly cut him off, plastering a bright, albeit slightly forced, smile on her face.
No.
Of course not.
"I was just worried about making you uncomfortable, Your Highness. I'm actually quite used to sleeping on the outside." And with that, the matter was settled. The Hua took the inside, Bai Qian took the outside, and under the same roof, the two finally laid down to rest. A new chapter of their shared destiny quietly unfolding. This was the first time Bai Qian had ever slept in the same bed with a man, even though this man would be her future husband. She was still too embarrassed to sleep. Behind her, the Hua said, "Qianchen, do you want me to hold you while you sleep?"
Bai Qian froze and instinctively moved off the bed.
With a thud, she rolled off the bed twice. The Hua, seeing Bai Qian's disheveled appearance, laughed and got out of bed to help her up. He teased her, saying that he knew she was a restless sleeper, which was why he wanted to hold her. Bai Qian quickly explained that the bed was too small. When the two lay back down on the bed, the Hua shielded Bai Qian on the inside. But the commotion had made it even harder for her to sleep. The Hua said calmly, Qian Chin, do you know the immortal Yin? Bai Qian was startled, but pretended to be nonchalant as she replied, I've heard of him, but I've never met him. Wasn't it said that he and his master disappeared together? The Hua sighed thoughtfully. I originally thought you would know more. These past few days, Li Jing has been searching for Yin everywhere with his old portrait. When I saw the portrait, I suddenly thought it was you, disguised as a man.
Bai Qian gave the Hua a vague reply. Perhaps it's just a coincidence.
After Bai Qian fell asleep, the Hua silently watched her, and a gentle kiss landed on her eyes. Waking up in the morning, the Hua was in a good mood. Sitting leisurely at the table, he said, Qian Chin, come and help me tie my hair.
Bai Qian was startled and asked, Are you calling me?
The Hua, holding a comb, looked at Bai Qian and said, Today, I'm going to see the Heavenly Emperor, and it wouldn't be good if I wasn't properly dressed. Bai Qian took the comb and carefully combed the Hua's hair and crown. After it was tied, the Hua whispered, Before you, ... He didn't finish his sentence. And although Bai Qian found it strange, she didn't press him. The Hua took out a string of beads from his sleeve and placed it on Bai Qian's wrist, telling her that since her magic was now sealed, she was like a mortal, and she should keep it for self-defense, just in case.
Bai Qian saw the Hua's mixed feelings of joy and worry and didn't say much.
Only hoping that this matter would be resolved quickly so that they could both be at ease. As the Hua was leaving, he paused and said, I was busy with important matters yesterday and forgot to tell you. On the first day of the 6th month, you just need to stop Yuan Zuan as much as possible and send someone to push Donghua Dejan into the river. That way, Donghua Dejan will go to save that beauty. When they look at each other, they will fall in love. In this way, it'll not disturb the Dijon's destiny, and it'll also free Yuan Zuan from this love tribulation. That would be the best outcome. After the Hua left, Bai Qian wondered what he meant by the serious matter he mentioned last night. None of the events last night could be considered serious. However, listening to what the Hua said later, it seemed to be a good way to help Yuan Zahan overcome his tribulation. The Hua's method finally relieved Bai Qian's worries. Now, all that's left is to find a suitable person to push Donghua Deja into the water. Bai Qian also thought she should go find Feng Jiu. Just then, she ran into Yuan Zuan, who had come looking for her. Bai Qian used her meticulousness in studying Taoist magic as an excuse to inquire with Yuan Zuan about a consort Chun in the harem who had a phoenix tail flower on her forehead. She figured that this must be Feng Jiu, who had come to repay her debt of gratitude. After seeing Yuan Zuan off, Bai Qian found a palace made to take her to Feng Jiu's villa. As soon as she entered, she saw a woman sitting forlornly by the fish pond. Upon seeing her aunt, Feng Jiu immediately threw herself into Bai Qian's arms, her face filled with terror as she cried and begged, Auntie, don't take me away. I love him. I can't live without him. Seeing her like this, Bai Qian wondered if she had used the forbidden Chinku technique, the 2 lives curse. Bai Qian immediately knocked Feng Jiu unconscious and ordered her to be taken to a room to rest. Considering the situation, Bai Qian knew she could only wait for Feng Jiu to wake up and come to her on her own. So, Bai Qian had no choice but to return to her own residence. At dinner time, Bai Qian was eating alone in her room when Feng Jiu came in, looking distressed. She knelt on the ground and said, Aunt Feng Jiu has come to apologize to you. Bai Qian asked, Did you really use that to life's curse? Why would you use that for no reason? Feng Jiu blushed and repeatedly said, Aunt is wise. Feng Jiu told Bai Qian about her dream with Donghua,
where she learned that Donghua didn't want wealth or power in this life, only the love of one person.
Bai Qian was surprised and said that Donghua in this life was so materialistic. Feng Jiu said awkwardly that she originally planned to leave safely when the emperor met his beloved on the first day of the 6th lunar month. But she didn't expect that she couldn't even say a word of love to the emperor. That's why she had no choice but to use the 2 lives curse.
Bai Qian remembered something important and asked Feng Jiu if Donghua had taken advantage of her.
Feng Jiu quickly shook her head and said that the emperor had only come to her once and left after a short while. Only then did Bai Qian feel relieved. Bai Qian saw Feng Jiu off, and Jian appeared in midair. Bai Qian smiled and said that her purple bamboo garden was truly a wonderful place, with so many immortals coming in one night. Jian told Bai Qian that the day after she went to the banquet in the East Sea, the Hua had also come to see her, asking her about the events of 300 years ago. Of course, she said that Bai Qian had gone into seclusion and fallen into a deep sleep after the great battle with Qingkang. Jian was worried that the Hua and Bai Qian's marriage might fall through again. Bai Qian thought about how the UAA had treated her recently and replied that Jian probably would intone. Only then did Jian feel relieved. Jian returned to the peach blossom forest, only to be hastily dragged by Bai Zun to the Western Sea. It turned out that Bai Zun had a chance encounter with the second prince of the Western Sea, Di Feng, in the mortal realm, and they had hit it off quite well. Di Feng always seemed worried, and Bai Zun learned upon inquiring that he was troubled by his elder brother,
The first prince of the Western Sea, whose health had been frail 600 years ago,
had inexplicably deteriorated rapidly. Numerous pharmacists had been consulted, but to no avail. Even the celestial medicine king was helpless, only saying that the first prince's illness didn't seem to be physical. Gaon followed Bai Zuan to the Western Sea, and as he used his magic to examine the first prince, he was startled, secretly marveling at how this could be. With the first day of the 6th lunar month fast approaching, Bai Qian still hadn't found a suitable person to push the emperor into the water. Coincidentally, on that day, Xiao Xin, missing her son, secretly came to the mortal realm and watched Yuan Zuen from afar, shedding tears. Bai Qian called Xiao Xin aside
and told her her plan. Someone was needed to hide next to the emperor that day.
And after the beauty entered the water, pushed the emperor into the water, and the mission would be accomplished. Xiao Xin originally wanted to do it herself, but unfortunately, she was pregnant and it was inconvenient. Xiao Xin thought that Sangji was the most suitable person. Finally, the first day of June arrived quickly. The emperor, his concubines, and Yuan Zuan were watching the song and dance on the riverbank. The Hua, worried about Bai Qian's safety, also came with seeming to watch from the side.
Bai Qian called Yuan Zuan over as planned, and then found an excuse to let Yuan Zuan leave.
Suddenly, AROC appeared in the sky, grabbed a beauty on the shore, and threw her into the water. Everyone panicked, but Sangji intervened in time and kicked the Hua into the water. Bai Qian never expected that Donghua Dijan in this life would be a complete landlubber, unable to swim at all. Feng Jiu, bound by the two lives curse, saw the emperor fall into the water and instinctively jumped in to save him. In the chaos, someone secretly pushed Bai Qian, intentionally pushing her into the river. Fortunately, the Hua was there and rescued Bai Qian in time. Bai Qian was worried that the Hua would suffer a backlash for using his magic to save her in the mortal realm. After confirming that Bai Qian was safe, the Hua said with peace of mind that as long as she was safe, he didn't care what happened to him. Bai Qian was deeply moved. It turned out that the one who pushed Bai Qian into the river was none other than Princess Miao Qing, who had been instigated by Su Jin to come to the mortal world to teach Bai Qian a lesson. Su Jin heard from Miao Qing that not only had she failed to frame Bai Qian, but the Hua had also saved her. In order to avoid being implicated in this matter in the future, Su Jin thought to herself that she had to come up with a foolproof plan. After the emperor fell into the water, the imperial physicians rushed over to examine him and take his pulse.
The Hua and Seeming had also secretly slipped down from the peach banquet.
Now that the matter was settled, the two hurried back. Bai Qian thought that although Yuan Zhen's matter had been handled somewhat poorly, it was finally over, and Yuan Zhen's fate could be considered complete. The cycle of day and night in the human world is swift. In the blink of an eye, it was night when Bai Qian returned to the purple bamboo garden for a nap. As Bai Qian got up and was about to head towards Feng Jiu, she ran into Yuan Zuan, who had come looking for her. Yuan Zuhan stammered that he had something he wanted to discuss with his master. As he spoke, he turned around from behind and carefully opened his hands. To his horror, It was the same ROC that had caused trouble earlier that day. This was no ordinary ROC, but the golden-winged ROC under the Buddha's seat in the Western Paradise. Now, it was bound by Yuan Zuan with the immortal locking bell and had been reduced to the size of a sparrow. It was hanging its head and looking at Bai Qian with a pitiful expression, begging her to let it go. As it turned out, Yuan Jin thought the little bird was happy to be kept by him,
and begged Bai Qian
to discuss with the bird's owner that he was just immortal and would naturally return the bird to its rightful owner after he passed away. Bai Qian thought that since she had taken Yuan Jin as her disciple, she really hadn't taught him anything to write. Now that she had successfully retired, she was about to say goodbye to him. It would be good to give him a keepsake, so she agreed to Yuan Jin's request. The Hua and Ximing suddenly appeared, standing in midair. Yuan Zuan exclaimed that he had finally seen immortals. The Hua walked to Bai Qian's side and naturally pulled her into his arms. Yuan Zuan asked the Hua if it was because his father, the emperor, was diligent in governing and loved his people that the immortals had come to find him. The Hua glanced at Yuan Zuan and said, "I'm afraid I'll disappoint the crown prince. I'm only here to find my wife."
Bai Qian smiled awkwardly at Yuan Zun and said,
"They've come to find me. To find me." Bai Qian, who had gone to the winged realm all by herself. Without a moment's hesitation, the Hua raced towards the danger. Meanwhile, Bai Qian had already arrived at the Great Purple Palace. She immediately noticed something was off. The fortress, which was heavily guarded 70,000 years ago, was now eerily quiet and undefended. It was obvious Xuan Nu was trying to lure her into a trap. A cold smile touched Bai Qian's lips. She was no longer the naive young immortal she had been 70,000 years ago. This time, she was here to settle the score, and she intended to tear the Great Purple Palace apart.
Bai Qian
fought her way into the main hall, a whirlwind of righteous fury.
There, standing in the center, was Xuan Nu, surrounded by a legion of winged realm soldiers. Xuan Nu's voice dripped with malice as she sneered, "Qianqin, it's been 70,000 years! I heard from the emperor that Xian was a fox spirit, and I just knew it had to be you. I'm so pleased you've taken such good care of Mo Yuan's immortal body. As a reward for your efforts, I'll make sure my soldiers give you a quick death." Bai Qian simply scoffed. "That's if you have what it takes." In an instant, the Jade Purity Kunlun fan flew from her hand, summoning a fierce gale. The fan expanded to 3 feet long, as Bai Qian leaped into the air, grabbing it mid-flight.
With a powerful flourish, she cut through the ranks of soldiers, carving a path of destruction.
She was a force of nature, unstoppable and determined, but during the chaotic battle, the white silk covering her eyes was slashed. The sudden light was blinding, and in that moment of vulnerability, the sheer number of soldiers overwhelmed her. She took several critical hits, her white robes quickly becoming stained with blood. Just as she was about to fall, a familiar figure appeared out of nowhere, catching her just in time. It was the Hua. Seeing him, a wave of relief washed over Bai Qian, and she managed a weak smile. "If you'd come just half an hour earlier," she teased, "I wouldn't be in such a sorry state." The Hua held her tightly, his heart aching with guilt and worry.
"I'm late, Qianqin," he whispered.
Seeing her covered in wounds, his voice was soft but laced with a terrifying calm. "Who did this to you?" Bai Qian gritted her teeth and pushed herself to stand, her eyes fixed on Xuan Nu. "The ones who hurt me are mostly dead," she declared, her voice ringing with power. "Only this woman remains. She insulted my master and hurt my family. I will end her myself." Bai Qian raised her hand, channeling her energy to send the Kunlun fan flying straight at Xuan Nu. But just then, Li Jing, the winged lord, rushed back and threw himself in front of the fan to protect her. In a flash, the Hua's hand shot out and caught the weapon before it could strike. With the immediate threat neutralized, Bai Qian performed a spell, finally reclaiming the face she had once lent to Xuan Nu all those years ago in the peach grove. When Xuan Nu saw her true, disfigured reflection in a mirror, she completely lost her mind. Screaming in horror, she clawed at her own face. gouging out her eyes until she was a bloody, horrifying mess. The long-awaited vengeance was complete. With the adrenaline gone, Bai Qian's strength finally gave out, and she collapsed into the Hui's arms. He held her close, whispering in her ear, "Qianchen, can you still hold on?" She could only shake her head weakly. A soft, warm light enveloped her, and she drifted into a deep, healing sleep. What an absolutely epic and emotional scene. The culmination of 70,000 years of betrayal and pain. Let me know your favorite part of this confrontation in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this recap, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.